So I'm Patrick Hines. I'm a senior account executive here at Dataedo. I'll be one of the hosts. We also have Richard Monk in the call today as well. He's a data success manager here at Dataedo. If you guys are new here, Dataedo is a lightweight data governance solution, really focused towards being customizable and building a single source of truth around your data inside of an organization. And we usually sit in that mid-market space. So that's a little bit about us. Today, we'll be going over data quality and taking chaos to confidence with your data quality and ensuring data quality inside of your organization. Richard will be running through that presentation today and giving some helpful insights on that piece. And we'll hand it over to Richard and we'll get started. Thanks, everyone, for joining in.
All right. Great. Thanks, Pat. Good to see everyone here, and welcome to Dataedo Data Quality. As Pat mentioned, the whole idea here is to give an introduction into how data quality is handled in Dataedo. So the agenda today, I'm going to take you on a little tour of data quality for data community members. And for those who may not be familiar with our terminology, a data community member is a Dataedo user who does not have edit capabilities. So this is the general community of users in your companies. Then we'll move that tour over to the tour of data quality for data stewards, who are those with edit capability in Portal. Then we'll give an example or two of how to actually create data quality rules. We'll talk about standard rules and custom SQL rules. And then at the end, we will have Q&A, as Pat mentioned. So as we're going through here, if you do have questions, please put them into the chat so that we can get those. And Patrick, if you wouldn't mind watching the chat, and if questions come up that are best handled while we're in the moment, please feel free to interrupt me and ask those questions so we can get them answered at the right time. Or you're welcome to hold your answers to the end, and then we'll do everything at once at the end.
Of course.
So, all right. So the very fact that you're here tells me that you know why data quality is important and you recognize how it can benefit you. Obviously, on the screen here, I've got a bunch of use cases or situations where data quality is useful. And I'm not going to go through all of these. And obviously, there are a lot of others here. I'm sure that in your experience, you can look at this and think of several more that apply to you specifically. But when we get down to it, isn't data quality about trusting your data? And not only trusting the data, but trusting that you know you can trust the data, if you understand what I mean there. Having good data is one thing, but knowing that it's good and trusting that it's good so that you can rely on it to do all of these other things, that's really where it's at. So that's the approach that we're taking with Dataedo, is to allow you to look into your data systems with these rules that I mentioned and keep track of that data quality and improve it over time so that all of the users obviously can come to trust that the data in the systems is good. So let's move on to the tour that I mentioned. This is Dataedo Portal. And I have signed in here as a community member. This test account, John Snow, this is a test account, and he has been assigned as a data community member, meaning he can't edit content. He can view everything, but he can't edit this. So there are lots of places where data quality is integrated into Dataedo, into Portal. So let's just dig in. The first place I want to show you is in the data dictionary, and you can either get in here through the data catalog right there, data sources right there. You can browse into this, you can search into it, whatever. I happen to have my example here bookmarked. So I'm just going to jump directly to it right here with this dim customer table. And when I get here, there's several things to look at. The first thing you're going to see, if you're looking around the screen looking for data quality, you're going to see it right over here on the right-hand side. So for this table, we're reporting a data quality score of 99.84%. And we're reporting a quality ratio of 50%. You're probably saying, what the heck does that mean? What we're showing here is the data quality score is giving us a total score based on the total number of rows that are being tested and giving us the success rate. So 99.84% of the rows tested have passed the tests that we have. In the other one, this is looking at the rules. So I happen to have two rules here. One of them passed, one of them failed. That's what that's telling us. So just different ways of looking at the same thing. The next place to look is on the data quality tab right here. And here I mentioned we have two rules. You can see those two. You can see that one of them passed, one of them failed. And you start to get into this. I'm not going to dig really deep right here. I'm going to go some other places before we start digging into what's actually under these rows. You can see they be expanded, but I'm going to go another couple of places before we get to that point to talk about what's inside of that. The next place that I want to go is to illustrate a use case. Let's say that you are looking at a report and you want to know if that report is trustworthy. Is the data in this report trustworthy? Well, so I've gone into the report and you're noticing there is no data quality. All right. So why are we here? You can get to it a really neat way here. I'm going to click on data lineage, and on this, of course, I'm showing here is the data set that feeds into this report. And here are the 6 tables that feed data into this data set. If I look at these, I'm going to double click right there on the table name. There is the data quality for that table. And if I go to the next one, there's the data quality for that table and the next one. So you can see individually how the data quality is for the data coming into this data set and ultimately to the report. It gives you this confidence of knowing whether or not you can trust the report. And it's neat that you can drill down and see it by table, by data type, basically. You can see the columns that are involved. And this lets you know if there is a concern, you know where to go to find it, not just the data set itself has a score of, I don't know, 95%, for example. You can tell exactly if there are problems, you can tell exactly where they are. So that's the next way you can go in and look at data quality and see if you can trust the things you're looking at in your data systems, the reports, the data sources, and whatnot. So it's that idea of building trust and knowing that you can trust your systems and the data in them. The next place where you can get to data quality is in domains. So if I go here and let's look at this domain, we're in the marketing and sales domain, and there's our data quality. And you can see within the marketing and sales domain, looking at the assets that are linked to it and the rules that are applied to those assets, we have a score of 93.33%. In other words, all of those assets that are linked, the rows in all of those tables are passing at a rate of 93%. In other words, less than 7% of them, less than 7% of the rows have an error of some variety. So that's the next way you can go in here and view that. And of course, you can drill in deeper if you want to just look at a portion of that at a subject area. You can do that also. So the next place where you can get in there and see what's happening with the data systems. Really important to be able to look at that by domain so that you can tell, you know, If there are problems, maybe marketing and sales has that 94%, maybe HR has a 99%. Well, immediately we know where to put effort into improving the quality of our data. All right, the final place, and this is the main one, is we can get to data quality through the data quality menu right here. And this brings us to the big view where we have everything combined. This is where the magic happens. So I'm just briefly going to go through some of these areas here. Obviously, we're on the overview tab here, and we can see some metrics about the entire system. This is about everything that you've connected to and applied rules to. So the first graph of interest here is we have the rules separated out by data quality dimension. And if you look at this, you can see things like my completeness rules have a ratio, a success rate of 95%. My consistency rules are 83%. Accuracy is 0. The reason accuracy is 0 is because I have no rules defined in that dimension. So nothing defined, no rules defined, obviously it reports a 0. And so on for these others. So the rules are applied by dimension, and so we can report them that way. Next, over here, we have the overall data quality for the entire data system. So of all 131 rules that are running that I have applied to the various databases I've connected to, everything, I have an overall quality score of 90% there. And then, of course, it's showing us rule instances. I have 132 rules defined, 131 of them have run. In other words, I created one that hasn't run yet. That's what that's telling us. And then just scrolling down here, this is metrics over time, showing us, the number of rules, pass rate, fail rate, all those things. And by dimension, what is happening for each of these. Obviously, I am building these rules, and so we see these rates potentially going down, because as I have another rule, if it fails, then I go down. When you have your rules in place and you're pretty mature in applying rules and tracking these and cleansing your data, you want to see these rates going up over time. That's the goal. You want to see all of these rates going up over time. All right, next tab here is the Insights tab. This is a series of metrics that are built into Dataedo portal. You don't have to do anything to activate these. They are there and available no matter what. And you can see, I'm not going to go through these all, but you can see, some the metrics here, the columns by uniqueness, the table sizes, empty tables, empty columns, and so on. There's a lot of stuff here. Places where we have missing data, problems with the data model, tables without primary keys, stale tables. In my set here, this is an inactive data set, so it's not giving me this information. But in your system, it would start looking for the tables that have not been updated or not been accessed over time. So just insights into your data systems that don't require you to create rules to see them. It's built in for you. All right. The operational dashboard. This gives us a view into the rules that failed the last time the data quality module ran, and it queried those tables. So here's the rules defined and where they are applied to, the columns that these rules are applied to, and the number of rows that failed in those, and of course the severity. So this allows you to very quickly get a view of what's happening, what is failing, and when it failed. So the idea here, obviously, the goal is over time, you want to see this list become empty. Is the ultimate goal. You don't want to have any failed rows. Realistically, you will have some, but it allows you to find them very quickly so that you don't have to wonder if there are problems in your data set and where they are. this allows you to very quickly find those. Okay, suggestions I'm going to skip, and rule instance I'm going to skip for the moment, and I'm going to go to run history. This is a view that gives us, similar to what we saw on operational dashboard, but this reports both failures and successes. So every row, as it runs, it's reported in here, and you can see whether it failed or whether it passed and when the last time it ran was. So another view of that same idea of, can we trust the data? All right. Rule instances. Now, I promised I was going to come here and show you under the hood of what these instances look like. And to do this, let's just work our way across this grid. The first thing is we have each of the rules down here in the grid, and we see what column, table, database they're applied to. We can open this and see actually what's happening. You can see we tested 99 rows, 99 of them were successful. There were 0 failures. So obviously it passed. And we can see it had a severity level of critical. All right. We can filter this. Of course, you can search. You can filter by severity level. So if we want to see only those rules that apply at a severity level of high, you can do that. You can see I have some failures right there. We'll talk about failures in a minute. We can look at it by quality dimension. So if I wanted to look at the rules about consistency, I can do that. And by chance, these are all severity of high. I took that filter off of there. But you can see all of those by dimension, like that. We can filter by the results. So here we're looking at all of them. We could look at those that passed. They succeeded. They did not fail. We can look at those that failed only, like this. Or we can look at any that errored out. In other words, there was a problem running the SQL that checked for the data quality and it didn't run. So that's what would be in errors. But looking at the failures here, we can go in here and we can quickly find, did something fail and what was it that failed? So let's just look into one of these. Again, you can look at it at a high level. 116,295 rows were tested, 1 failed, okay? And we can dig in more and see, just more information about what's happening with this rule. Again, over time, how has it run? In other words, since I created this rule on the 31st of January, it has not been cleansed. That 1 row is still failing all this time later. So it allows you to keep track of those things, and if needed, maybe encourage someone to fix them so that the data will be more accessible and trustworthy. Again, we have that run history tab right there so that you can see what's happening with it over time. Just a different view of this same graph right there. All right, let's go back. All right, here. As I mentioned, this is where the magic happens, and you can see all this information here. Are there parameters applied to the rule? In other words, are you filtering something or omitting something from the rule, or are you applying like date ranges or things like that would be in parameters? And of course, you can see all those other things there. All right, so that is what community members see when they come in and look at data quality. The whole idea is allow community members to understand what the data quality situation is so they know that they can trust their data. And if not, if there is a problem, then we know that that needs to be fixed. All right, I am now going to log John out, and I'm going to sign back in here as Barbara, who I have assigned to a data steward group so that she has edit capabilities. And we're going to see what it is that editors can do with data quality that community members cannot. All of the things I said about where the data quality is exposed, how you access it, how you interpret it, all of that stuff is the same. There are two main places that are additional for the editors. Of course, they can create rules. So you can see right there on the right side, create a rule instance. And I'm going to talk more about those in a minute. And I'm also going to mention there are several different places in Dataedo where you can access this create rule instance functionality. Obviously here we're in the data quality module. You can also do it when you're looking at a table or looking at a column. You can access that and apply the rules directly to those. We're going to come back to that one. The other place I want to talk about, though, that is important for the editors is if they need to correct something. So let's do an example right here. We're going to look at this continent. And again, we have all these rows tested. We had one that failed. Well, it's not enough to know that it failed. We also want to know what failed so it can be fixed. We're talking about data cleansing here. So if I open this all the way, right there, I have up here at the top now, as an editor, I have a failed rows tab, and it gives me this list of exactly what it is that failed. We have a city key of 0, so that's a different problem. But right here under continent, we're looking at the continent rule. We have a continent name of NA. Obviously, that's not a continent name, and so it threw an error there. And this allows somebody to make the decision to fix this problem. If you had a bigger list here, then you have the ability to download this as an editor right here. They can they can go to their preferred format, offload this, and then use it externally to Dataedo to cleanse the data. So that becomes really important for whatever engineer it is that is responsible for cleansing the data. This list will hold up to 1,000 rows. So each rule can report up to 1,000 rows that may have failed. All right. So that's important that you can download those. Only the data stewards can do that, not the community members. All right, so creating rule instances, again, this is available for the data stewards, not community members, of course. And the way Dataedo works is you choose a column like this, and you apply to that column a rule. So right here, we're applying the not empty or null rule to this account key column in the dim account table. The way this happens is we click on create rule, and depending on the data steward group you're in, you will either see this where you have the two choices of predefined rules or custom rules, or you may just get predefined rules only. The difference is we have data stewards who can access predefined rules, and we have power data stewards who can do both. And so you can basically grant the power data steward role to people who have the SQL capabilities and responsibilities to create more involved custom rules. That's the difference there. This Barbara, I've got her assigned to both, and so she is seeing both of these. All right, so let's go with the standard rule. She will click on that predefined rule, and as I mentioned, you have to apply this to an object. So we're just going to go and choose an object here, and you then say, are we going to apply this to a column or a table? I'm going to leave it on a column. Then, obviously, to get to the column, we have to choose what table it's in. So I'm going to choose that table, and we're going to go with the currency key column. Currency key column in the dim currency table in the data warehouse. Once you have that selected, You move on, and now we're going to find the rule that we want to apply to that column. We're going to go with a null rule because this is a key column. We don't want that column to be empty or null. Notice you can do null only. We're going to go not empty or null. We select that. Here, we define that rule more deeply. If we want, you can put a filter on here. For example, if you needed to put things that are newer than a certain date, or they are between a certain range, or something like that, you can put filter conditions on here. And then if you want to preview the rule, actually see what the SQL is doing, you can do that right there. All right, I'm not going to apply a filter on that. So I go on to next. Here's where we define what happens with failed rows. We can choose to save them or not. Those that I showed you, that one I showed you before, obviously had this turned on. So you can save it or not. And then you define what you want saved or what you want reported. So you can see right here, this one is going to report the currency key column. Obviously, this is meaningless because we're searching for nulls and empties. So reporting a null and an empty is basically meaningless. We're going to keep this, but we're also going to choose another column to help us identify that. So we're going to use the currency name column right there. And again, if you wanted to see the query, you could. If you wanted to apply orders and sorts on it, you can do all that stuff. So we're just going to leave it like that. We're going to go to next. And here we finalize the settings. We can choose, do you want the rule to become active now? In other words, begin running and looking at quality, or do you want to save it as draft and come back and finalize it later? We're going to leave this active. You can choose the severity level. I would say that a null key value is a critical error. So I'm going to set that to critical. You have your choices. The other place this is useful, it's not just information. Based on these severity levels, you can have the rule run at a different cadence. I've got mine set up right now so that the critical rules run, I think mine are set weekly. You might want it to run daily. To be more aggressive with that. Mine are set for weekly, and I have the others combined into a single schedule that runs twice a month. So half as often as the criticals, but you can set those up, and it's all up to you. We don't mandate that to you. And then optionally, you can put a description on here on this rule for people who, maybe you're not completely technical, that word null might confuse somebody. So you might want a user-friendly description like currency key can't be empty, or it must be present, or something like that. Again, that is optional. But then we finish it, and so we have success right there. We're going to go and look at that rule. It is right here, currency key, and it's not empty. I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back. The currency key column has the not empty or null rule applied to it. And of course, it has not run yet. So if we open this, there is no data because it hasn't run yet. It's brand new. I did create another copy of this rule yesterday and run it yesterday. So same rule. You can see right here, just 2 instances of it. And if I look at this, it had a full success rate. All 105 rows passed. There were no failures. So that you can see the results there of when that happens. Now, a place that people may need to make a change to this. If an editor comes in, they want to change a parameter or something, they can do that by going all the way in, and we have those settings up there. So you can change a rule or delete it if necessary. You're not stuck with it. The thing to know about new rules is that they will begin running as soon as they're activated. as long as you have the scheduler set up to run on this data source. So as I said, mine are. So the next time this runs, this rule will be included in that run and it will be reported. That was the one where I said, let's go back over here, where I said right here, I have 132 rules, 131 of them have run because I created a new rule that has not been triggered yet. So that allows you to create your schedule and then gradually add your rules to it, and then it'll just pick them up and run them the next time it happens. All right. I mentioned, of course, we also have these custom SQL rules here. I'm not going to go through this process. The thing to know here is that when you write your custom SQL, I would recommend you do it in Management Studio or dbeaver, Toad, whatever your favorite tool is. Write it and make sure that it's working, and then put it in here so that you don't have the issue of moving back and forth while you might need to fix a bug or something in that SQL. Remember that these custom rules are looking for failures. So write your SQL to look for failures, or I should say failure instances. So as an example, let's go back, and I have a custom rule in here somewhere. Here's a custom rule right here that I created. And if I go and look at this, you can see this one is failing, and we have all that information. I can actually see here, I have to go back to it again. I can actually see the SQL. If I click there, that's the SQL I'm using. So this was an example. This is not real business. I'm looking for places where the color column, the value in the color column, is not in the predefined list. So I'm looking for failures. And when I go in and I look at what failed, right there, I have 25 failed rows where the color value is multi or silver and black. So obviously this is a silly example, but it allows you to see how that SQL works. It's looking for the failures, not the successes. That's important to remember. And as I say, just test those SQL rules in Management Studio before you come in here. And remember that the person doing this must have Power Data Stewards permission. That's the role that gives them the ability to do that. Those are the things that I wanted to talk about. Happy to answer any questions now. What have we got for questions?
We do have one question currently. It's asking, can we exclude certain records in the rule, such as those labeled NA or -1 or -9,999?
Yeah, that's that on the very first screen where you can put in a parameter. That's exactly what you're doing there. You would say where column name, whatever the column name, does not, or it does equal that or does not equal that. So you can omit those from the query effectively. I believe in the next version, 25.2, that capability is being surfaced and exposed in an easier way. I haven't seen it. I've heard that is coming. So watch for that coming in 25.2. Yeah. So of course, if you have questions, existing customers, you have questions for support or for me, our contact information is here. Licensing information for existing customers, that's Jonathan. New customers, Patrick. General questions can go to Dataedo at dataedo.com. Happy to answer you any time about that. Specifically, if you have questions about implementing data quality there in your organizations, I'm happy to help you with that. I know this was a pretty high level, quick overview of how this works. If you want to get together, send me an email and we can schedule time to get together and talk about this in more depth if that's needful for you.
So we will wrap there. But again, feel free to take those contact information down for any new customers that don't currently have licenses that would like to explore Dataedo, data quality functionality, as well as any of our other capabilities. I would also be happy to have conversations with you guys. So feel free to shoot me an email, patrick@dataedo.com. We can also bring in Richard for some of those conversations as well if we want to talk more on the implementation side of things and how that goes. But I appreciate everyone's time today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Great. See you all.
Thanks
for joining.